In Venezuela, the Supreme Court of Justice reported on the electoral chamber's actions regarding the appeal to review the results of the July 28th elections. In Argentina, the State Workers Association announced that next month, a group from the United States will take over the metal mechanics sector of Rio Tercero and then move on to other facilities. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees reported that at least 205 of its workers were killed by Israel during the last 10 months. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuela's Supreme Court of Justice met with diplomatic representatives accredited in the country to report on the electoral chamber's actions regarding the appeal to review the results of the July 28th elections. Supreme Court President Carislia Rodriguez informed that representatives of different political parties and candidates appeared before the electoral chamber. Rodriguez pointed out that the parties that are part of the United Democratic Platform did not present the documents requested by the electoral chamber. She also noted that former candidate Edmundo González failed to appear before the court, thus being in contempt of the court. Carislia Rodriguez will present a report with the investigation and warned that the National Electoral Council is the only body that can announce the results.
First, we reiterate that the National Electoral Council, as the governing body and highest authority of the electoral power in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, appeared in full with all its main directors, headed by its president, Dr. Elvis Eduardo Hidrobo Amoroso, fully complying with the requirement formulated by this electoral chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice by consigning in due time and in due course all the documents related to the electoral process.
The magistrate pointed out that the members of the Unitary Platform Alliance declared that they were unaware of the tally sheets that show Edmundo González as the winner.
All members of the Democratic United Platform Alliance did not submit any electoral documents, claiming that they do not have any kind of information related to this electoral process. In this sense, they stated that they do not have the polling station's tally sheets nor the list of witnesses. They also claimed that they did not take part in the process of transferring and safeguarding the electoral material.
Supreme Court of Justice President Rodriguez stated that former presidential candidate Edmundo González was in contempt of court after failing to appear before the court.
It is hereby stated, for the record, that former candidate Edmundo González Urrutia did not attend and therefore did not comply with the subpoena, disregarding with his inaction the order of this, the highest instance of the electoral contentious jurisdiction of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Consequently, he failed to deliver the tally sheets, the list of witnesses, or any electoral material.
In Venezuela, the declarations of the Carter Center on the electoral process are being rejected. Our correspondent Adriana Cibori has the details about this in the following material.
The organization of the 39th President of the United States is not what it used to be, so say Venezuelan authorities.
One thing is that the center is called Carter, and another is that it has the strictness of the past. The Carter Center is directed by the George Soros officials, and the current spokeswoman named Jennifer, who spoke yesterday, is a State Department employee. The Carter Center has no instrument, no capacity to say the nonsense it has said that the Venezuelan system was not the object of a cyber attack, because not only was it the object, but today it is the object of a brutal cyber attack. They have left the mark of a cyber attack.
The spokesperson and head of mission was Jenny Lincoln, who declared to the press that there was no evidence of the hacking attempt suffered by the National Electoral Council in the transmission of votes, causing a delay in the delivery of results, even though investigations and pages of international and open statistical studies show that they received 30 million cybernetic attacks per minute.
I did not understand the desperation to issue an opinion that harms the transparency of the Venezuelan electoral process or the Venezuelan electoral system. That's the issue. When that happens, some actions do not correspond to the doctrine of international observation. And it affects the electoral system of the countries.
The organization was invited as an observer by the governing body to follow the electoral process before, during, and after the presidential elections of last July 28th.
Mrs. Jenny Lincoln lies shamelessly. None of her words correspond to reality or Venezuelan legality. Ashamed to place this institution in the coup d'etat plan.
In the streets of the city, opinions differ. Some do not want to know about politics, others define themselves as opponents, and many are tired of the fact that the ultra-right-wing party, which had Edmundo González as its candidate, once again did not recognize its defeat, and the outbreaks of violence reappeared.
It is the typical script that they have always presented in the electoral process in the last 25 years. It is pathetic, but it is the typical script that we are used to observe.
A few steps from this square, a meeting took place between the diplomatic corps accredited in the country and high government officials, who reiterated that the most radical opposition seeks support from abroad to destabilize by tarnishing the electoral process in Venezuela.
In Colombia, the Minister of Justice, Ángela María Buitrago, referred to the planning of an assassination attempt against President Gustavo Petro and described it as an act of the utmost gravity. From the city of Cúcuta, in the northeast of the country, where he was participating in the 20th Congress of Procedural Law of the Francisco de Paula Santander University, he referred to several issues related to the Fonade case and the planning of an attack against the head of state. Hours earlier, the Ministry of Defense linked the self-dominated Central General Staff of the Revolutionary Colombian Armed Forces dissidents as responsible for the operation, about which it provided rigorous details.
I think it's the most serious one. I didn't hear the president. I heard the minister affirming the reasons why it has been detected in several locations, and not just one, and about those cases. Because the issue is the most serious one in my approach, because I think not just undermining the top authority of the country and the signification of a democratic election as the one in this case, but what it means trying to do that. I think it's a very regrettable message in Colombia.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. China and Russia joined the sorrow for a tragic plane crash that left dozens dead in Brazil. On the Chinese government's behalf, the foreign ministry spokeswoman expressed her condolences to Brazil and expressed her solidarity with the families of the victims. For his part, President Vladimir Putin extended his condolences to his Brazilian counterpart, Lula da Silva, for the crash of the ATR-22 plane and expressed his condolences to the families of the deceased. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bolivia sent its messages of condolences to the Brazilian government after the death of 62 passengers in a plane crash. In a statement issued through social media, Bolivian Foreign Minister Celinda Sosa expressed her solidarity with the families of the deceased and with the government of President Lula da Silva. The loss of human life is devastating, and our prayers are with all those affected, Sosa said in a statement. The government of Cuba expressed its condolences as well to Brazil after the plane crash that left no survivors. Through the social media X, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez expressed his deepest condolences on behalf of the nation to the government and people of Brazil. Rodriguez later on expressed his solidarity with the grief of the families and relatives of the victims. Meanwhile, in Argentina, the State Workers Association denounced that next month a group from the United States would take over the metal mechanics sector of Rio Tercero and then move on to other facilities. A national plenary meeting held in view of the situation of the state-owned company Fabricaciones Militares determined the state of alert and permanent assembly with mobilizations against the limitation to a joint stock company perpetrated by the government of President Javier Milei and Minister Federico Sturzenegger. The association argues that it is due to the policy adjustment and dismantling carried out by the government, and added that the plenary was attended by all the workers of all the productive units of Fabricaciones Militares. In Mexico, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador declared that the U.S. government continues to withhold information about the arrest of Mexican drug traffickers Ismael Mayo Zambada and Joaquin Guzman López, son of El Chapo Guzman. The Mexican president expressed his disagreement with the lack of cooperation from the U.S. government to clarify the circumstances surrounding the arrest of Zambada and Guzman. López Obrador raised a series of questions regarding the way in which both drug traffickers arrived to U.S. soil, the origin of the aircraft, and the negotiation processes. In response to this, the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Ken Salazar, affirmed that Washington did not plan the capture operation. The Ecuadorian capital is the epicenter of the Quito Luz de America Festival, a visual and sound show that illuminates the main churches of the historic center. Let's see.
In the historic center of the city, Quito Luz de America Festival takes place on the occasion of the first cry of independence of the country. Through the mapping technique, thousands of people from the capital are immersed in shapes, textures, colors, and sounds projected on the facades of the most iconic churches.
To recover the pride of living in Quito, to recover the love of being part of this city. And that is also part of knowing our history, fundamental to know what happened on August 10, 1809, fundamental to know what happened on August 2, 1810, which are not only emblematic dates for the capital city, but for Ecuador and for Latin America. Remember that is why Quito is known as Luz de America, and that is why this festival is inspired by the Luz de America, because that is the ideal of self-government. Ideals of freedom and independence are part of what we should know.
The luminous and sound projections of the most representative places and symbols of the capital are exposed mainly on the facades of churches such as that of St. Francis.
In the case of San Francisco, we are using 7 projectors. The projectors that are used are the cinema ones because the color and optical characteristics that these projectors provide are like the cameras. They do not have interchangeable lenses.
In total, there are 7 points where visitors can appreciate the projection of artistic, luminous, and music.
I think it's fabulous because it brings people downtown and recreates business.
But this is very eye-catching because the movement of the lights is very beautiful.
Here, for example, on the facade of the Sucre Theater, the theme was based on a transition of culture as intangible heritage, tradition, games, music, and customs.
We could see the different arts that represent our city, paintings, references to touristic parts of Ecuador. Educational, and what it fosters is family and community bonding.
3 days of lights, colors, and sounds in the colonial center of Quito, one of the most preserved in the region.
We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. You'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break, don't go away. Welcome back. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees reported that at least 205 of its workers were killed by Israel during the last 10 months. According to the organization, most of the workers were killed with their families at home or while providing humanitarian assistance in the affected communities. The agency also denounced a campaign waged against the organization by the government of Benjamin Netanyahu that aims to shut the organization down. In this regard, it called for a ceasefire in that territory to alleviate the suffering of the population and its workers. The government of Lebanon denounced Israel's intentions to prolong the conflict in the region amid the ongoing genocide against the Gaza Strip. The foreign ministry condemned the missile bombardment of the Al-Tabain school, which left at least 100 Palestinians killed and dozens wounded, and said that the constant attacks by the occupying army are clear proof of Israel's contempt for international humanitarian law, which claims mediation for the sake of a ceasefire. In this context, Beirut calls on the international community to adopt a unified position in the face of the hostility of the Tel Aviv regime. Also, the government of Egypt rejected the unwillingness of Israel to put an end to the aggression against Palestine. The nation's foreign ministry denounced the increase of the siege every time the efforts of the mediators for an immediate and indefinite ceasefire intensifies, proof that Netanyahu does not plan to put an end to the Palestinian genocide in the near future. In Palestine, authorities denounced that more than 2,000 pounds of bombs were used in an attack against a school in central Gaza in one of the worst massacres committed by the Israel occupation army. The Israeli armed forces dropped bombs of 907 kilograms each in its attack on the Daraj school. Also, the genocidal troops at the service of Tel Aviv waited for the highest concentration of people in the area to carry out their attacks. Egypt has rejected the brutal Zionist onslaught against hundreds of civilians, which occurs in the midst of efforts to carry out a negotiation process between Hamas and Israel. One of the 15 illegal bases that the United States keep in Syrian territory was attacked on Saturday overnight. The illegal base of Karab al-Jir, unmanned aerial vehicles, impacted in several opportunities against the Washington base. They targeted their prefabricated rooms and various military vehicles. Images circling in social media show some fires while the Pentagon troops deployed drones and helicopters as part of their high alert operative. Syria has repeatedly denounced the presence of these illegal installations in its territory, as well as the dangerous tasks against peace they carry out. And in Sudan, thousands of citizens have been displaced due to floods generated by heavy rains in several states of the country. To date, more than 11,000 people have been affected, among them those displaced by the civil war in the region and who were sheltered in refugee camps. Also, local media report that at least 17 people have died in the city of Abu Hamad in the north of the country. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, about 200 families have been relocated after the rains and have been provided with tents and some supplies. The office also warned of the needs, such as the lack of water and hygiene suffered by those displaced by the armed conflict and the floods, which aggravates the humanitarian situation in the country. The Russian community reported that the Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk regions are under a regime of anti-terrorist operations. In the mentioned territories, measures and restrictions apply under Article 11 of the Federal Law of March 6, 2006 on counterterrorism. The measure applies amid unprecedented military operations and after several Ukrainian attempts to destabilize the situation in different regions where many civilians were injured. The committee took the measure to ensure the safety of the residents of the affected areas and declared that all state agencies are taking additional measures to maintain order and strengthen security. Former president of Catalonia in Spain, Carles Puigdemont, informed that he is back in Belgium in the municipality of Waterloo after his brief appearance in Barcelona. Through his account on the social media X, the politician criticized the interaction with the media that the Catalan Interior Department had on August 9th to explain why the police had failed to arrest him. He also stressed that he has never had the will to voluntarily surrender to the police or to facilitate his arrest because he considers it was unacceptable that he is being persecuted for political reasons and that in addition, the amnesty law is not being applied. On August 8th, Puigdemont, a fugitive from Spanish justice and resident in Belgium since 2017, appeared in the center of Barcelona where he addressed his supporters and then got lost in the crowd. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net, or join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.